So welcome everyone again to this day of meditation, and the date is November the 9th, 2024, and I'm coming to you from Winjabul country in the Bundjalung Nation. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. So today it's about waking up and looking at what blocks us from waking up and what facilitates waking up. And that's basically the topic of the talk. And what I'd like to do is to invite you to some meditations. I mean, all the Buddhist meditations actually are directed towards waking up. They're all directed towards waking up. They're all directed towards realizing an absolute reality. I call it the absolute reality. Some people wouldn't call it that, but it's all directed to realizing what we could call the deathless or nibbana, the way things actually are. The way things actually are, beyond our projections on things, beyond our delusions that cover and form a lens to the way we see things. So in this process of waking up, it's like we see through the illusions of the world and ourselves, and we see through that, and we see a reality that is actually the way things are. And that, in seeing that, we kind of get connected with our relative realities, like the relative realities of time and self and so on, the way we function in the world, which is, I function as a psychologist, and right now I'm functioning as a Dharma teacher and, facilitator of a day of meditation. We have these functions in the relative world. And I think when we wake up, we can still function in a relative world, but we keep in mind the fact that the way things are is the reality of things. And I think the bridge between this relative reality, functioning as a person and a being in a dualistic world, I think this is the bridge from that to the absolute, which is, it's undescribable, really. I think the bridge is love. I think the bridge is loving kindness and compassion and appreciative joy and gratitude and a peace, like a connection with beings with a sense of peace. I think this is the bridge between what I would call the relative realities and absolute reality. So this morning, when I invite you to some meditation, I think I'll invite you to a warm benevolence meditation to begin with. Sometimes it's called accessing our innate goodness, but it's essentially a metta meditation. I'll invite you to a metta meditation. And if you want, you can just continue on with that meditation to the next meditation. Or you could, I'll ring the bell to separate these two meditations. I'll begin with I'll give two guided meditations. So the first one will be basically a metta meditation, a warm benevolence meditation that you're invited to practice. And if you wish, you can just sort of stay with that as we move into the second meditation, or if you wish, you can move. I'll give you the opportunity to move if you wish. And the second meditation, I was just thinking about it. I think that I invite you to a meditation in a way that I've done it the way that Stephen Snyder has shown me or guided me in a particular meditation practice. And this one is kind of like developing samadhi, and it's developing samadhi initially, it's developing samadhi on the various energy centers. And I'll invite you to develop samadhi on a few energy centers. Sometimes they talked about as chakras. So the energy center below our belly button, the energy center at our heart, the energy center here In some places, it's called the third eye or this chakra. Um, and then the energy centers at the top of the head. So in that process, it fulfills those kind of requirements for samadhi in that you're prioritizing one thing. So the samadhi is another way of describing samadhi is concentration or the gathering in of attention and placing it in one spot. So we're doing this samadhi, and the samadhi component of meditation uh, helps us become clear, helps us become calm, peaceful, tranquil, and it gives us the power to see through things. And this fulfills what's called in Buddhism shamatha, or calm meditation practices. Now, meditation practices in Buddhism they're not divided, but they do have two aspects that support each other. One aspect is this serenity, is this shamatha or samatha. It's this focus of attention. So your mind becomes very clear, still, quiet, silent even. And then the other aspect is vipassana, or seeing clearly, or seeing things as they actually are, seeing directly, perceiving directly. And it's the seeing directly that wakes us up. And in my view, the seeing directly is very much, it's not completely dependent on having samadhi, but it really helps to have samadhi. It really helps to have that shift in the way you are, like the shift in your beingness to a place of, well, it's an altered state of consciousness, really, when you get really concentrated, when you get really have a lot of samadhi, you're actually entering an altered state of consciousness. And it's a very refined state of consciousness. And the capacity to see clearly is very powerful. So it's like entering that realm, and then from that realm, you see clearly, and the seeing is actually insight, seeing the way things actually are. And what we see is we see that, we have this creation of a self that we cling on to, and we have a story about it, and you see it clearly, it's just a story. And also what we see clearly is that, we create this story, we feed into it, and we feed into it with greed, ignorance, and hatred, or not knowing. And you kind of get caught up in this collective illusion that we could call samsara. Samsara Samsara is another way of describing samsara is about cycling in wheels of suffering, or cycling in birth, aging, sickness, and death. This kind of these reactive cycles that we get caught up in. It's just kind of falling into that world of cyclic reactions. So when we can see that clearly, we develop a bit of, what's the word, disenchantment. We develop it because we can see it clearly. We can see the suffering involved with that, and we have some disenchantment with that. So with the disenchantment or the dispassion, we don't feed into it. We choose not to feed into it with our habitual reactions, our desires, our cravings, our ignorance, our aversion and hatred. We choose not to feed into this creation of samsara. And what happens is that we turn towards the way things actually are. We turn towards that which is beyond the illusions of that, and we see this is it. This is the way it is. This is the way it is. It's not as we're creating. So, so the second meditation, have I talked about the second meditation? Yes. when we get to that crown bit, I'll invite you to just see. When we get to the crown bit, I'll invite you to kind of expand your awareness, um, open awareness, and be present with the way things actually are. And you might start to see all your thoughts arising, all your concepts about yourself. And something about seeing concepts around oneself, like for those of you who've been on talks with me before, I've talked about the conceit I am, or the self-conceiving mind. Um, it's called mana in Pali. And it's this, mm, this tendency for us to take personally everything, to appropriate everything, to bring it in and create a story about ourselves. I'm speaking to you now and I could tell you my story of my life, but in fact, it's just a story. So we can drop it, we can let it go. And when we can let it go, even if it's just momentarily, we let it go, we actually are present. We're present, just here now. So the second meditation, I invite you to go through, the cultivation of concentration, then open to the way things are. You might start to see, thoughts blocking you. And then I'll invite you to see beyond that, to see the reality of this, just this. Sounds as sounds, sights as sights, smells as smells. What else have we got? Body sensations as body sensations. And mental creations just as mental creations. We don't need to feed into them. And that whole process, I think, is called waking up. And as I'll describe in the talk a little bit later, there are the various stages of waking up. So thanks very much. So the outline of the day, I mentioned this earlier, but as usual, I'll guide you in some meditations, probably for about an hour or maybe less. And then in about an hour and a quarter, which on my clock is going to be about 20 to 11, I think. Is that right? No. Yes, about 20 to 11. 20 to 11 on Australian Eastern Daylight Time. We'll have a break for morning tea and go and get a cup of tea or go to the loo or whatever you need to do. And then I'll invite you to listen to a Dharma talk. The Dharma talks usually go for about an hour. I usually pre-write them, but sometimes I don't follow my script. And I usually write them about 2,500 words, which works out about 50 minutes to an hour. But sometimes I override it, or sometimes I overtalk, sometimes I go over a little bit. But I try not to. So we have Dharma talk, and then we have some discussion. And then we might have another meditation, or if not, we'll just continue with the discussion we have. I invite you to a break at 12:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time for about an hour. We have lunch. And we come back at 1:30 and there's two silent meditations, or two half an hour silent meditations, or one single meditation. And you're invited to shift your posture if you wish. You can go walking half an hour, sitting half an hour, or you can just sit for half an hour. You can just sit for the whole hour, or you can just walk for the whole hour, but whatever you like to do, it's your practice. And then we come back and at 2:30 Australian Eastern Daylight Time, we have some Dharma discussion, which is a bit of a sum up of the day, how you're going, and share what you want to share. Okay, so any questions about the agenda? And if there's questions about waking up, let's just save it for a bit. Let's have some guided meditation first and a Dharma talk. Okay, thanks a lot. So I'm going to turn the recording off now, and then I'll turn it back on again.